Hey guys, it's Miss Richardson here. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, I had a death in my family on Thanksgiving Day actually, and so I had to leave early on Monday in order to go to the funeral. So that's why I'm sending you the video. In order to get credit for being in class today, please let me know when you have finished watching the video and completing all of the math problems with me. Okay, guys? All right, so today we're going to start talking about volume of cylinders and cones. And then when we meet on Wednesday, we'll talk about how to find the volume of spheres, hemispheres, and combined figures. All right, so these are our standards we are covering today. And this is our learning target for the week. All right, so in 6th and 7th grade, you spent time finding the volume of prisms, like the one here on the page. And when you find the area of a figure, that's a two-dimensional object, right? And so when you find the area, it's always your unit squared. But when you're finding the volume, you're actually multiplying 3 different dimensions together. And so when you find the volume of anything, including a prism or a cylinder or the other things we're going to talk about today, your unit is always actually cubed, okay? So if this was a rectangular prism and this side was 2, this side was 4, and this side was 5, what would we do? We would simply multiply 2 times 4 times 5. And that would be how much this box could hold, which is what volume is. So today we're going to look at cylinders, like I said. So when you find the volume of a cylinder, the first thing you need to do is find the area of the base. So since the base of all cylinders is a circle, the way you find the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. And then once you've multiplied pi times radius squared, you're then going to multiply that number by the height of the cylinder. And that's going to tell you how much each of these cylinders can hold. How much water can we pour into this cylinder? All right, so this is our formula right here, like I just said. Pi, which is this symbol right here. Normally we will shorten that down to 3.14 when the directions tell us to. Other times we're going to leave pi in our answer according to the directions. So if the directions say leave this answer in terms of pi, that means we're not literally going to multiply by 3.14, but our final answer will have pi in it, like this answer here. So let's find our radius. Our radius is half the length across a circle. So first thing you're going to do is square that radius. So 2 squared is 4. Then if we multiply 4 times pi, it would literally look like this right here, 4 pi. And then we're going to multiply the height of 6 by 4 pi, and that will give us 24 pi. That's an exact answer of the volume. Like I said, according to the directions, it might tell you that, hey, guys, we're going to use 3.144 pi. And so that's when we get 24. We would literally put it in our calculator, 24 times 3.14. And sometimes the directions will actually tell you to use a pi button on your calculator, which will give you a little bit different answer by using 3.14. So anyway, once I multiply this, I get 75.4 units cubed. Okay? Like I said, those volume units have to be cubed. All right. All right, so as you are trying to do the assignments for this week, if you need a little more help and need to look at more examples, then please come back and watch this video right here. If you can tell here, she has left her answer in terms of pi. So nowhere on this video at this time has she actually multiplied 490 times 3.14. She left her answer as an exact answer, which means she left her answer in terms of pi. Okay, anyway, you can come back and watch that video if you need to. All right, so it says find the volume of the figure to the nearest tenth, and here's our directions. Use 3.14 for pi. So we're going to take that formula for volume, which is pi times our radius squared times our height. All right, so I'm going to ignore these directions for a second, and I'm going to pretend that the directions say leave in terms of pi. We're going to pretend that's what our directions say. So if we were leaving in terms of pi, we're going to use that symbol. We're going to multiply by our radius squared. Remember, our radius is half the length across the circle. So 4 squared, we would multiply 4 squared times our height of our cylinder, which is 12. All right, so since we're leaving in terms of pi, I'm going to use that symbol. I'm going to multiply 4 squared, which is 16. And 16 times 12 is 192. And so finally, if I was given an exact answer, I would say 192 pi inches cubed. Okay, so that would be my final answer if it said leave your answer in terms of pi. However, we do see that they wanted us to multiply by 3.14 in place of pi. So now in my calculator, I'm going to multiply 192 times 3.14. And so my final answer would be about 602.88 inches cubed. Okay, and so that is an approximate because pi, we round it to 3.14. This would be an exact answer. That's the exact answer. Hope that makes sense. All righty, and that's exactly what we got. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, well, they rounded it up to the tenths. So 602.9 rounded to the nearest tenth. Yep, it's important to read those directions even when you're the teacher. All right, so let's look at this one. Find the volume of the figure to the nearest tenth. So once again, I'm going to first find the answer in terms of pi. So I'm going to use my formula. The volume is pi times the radius squared times the height of the cylinder. So I'm going to bring down my pi symbol. I'm going to square 8, which is 64. I'm going to multiply 64 times 15. So 15 times 64, whoops, 15 times 64. Oh my goodness, I cannot even type, you guys. 15 times 64 is 960. So an exact answer would be 960 pi centimeters cubed. And now, since I'm going to follow these directions, I'm going to multiply 360 times 3.14, and my answer is 3,014.4 cubic centimeters. Okay. All right. So everybody needs to use that calculator for this unit for sure. All righty. We got it right. Excellent. So as long as you guys have the formula, it tells you exactly what to do, right? All right, so sometimes, of course, they'll give us the diameter instead of the radius. So the diameter is the length across the whole circle. So what do we have to do to our diameter to find the radius? Well, we would just split it in half. So what's half of 40? So half of 40 is 20. So the volume would be our pi times radius squared times the height. So pi times 40 squared, not 40, but 20 squared times 11. So I know 20 squared is 400, and 400 times 11 would be 4,400. So an exact answer would be 4,400 pi miles cubed. Oh my goodness, this is a huge, good grief. 11 miles tall. This is very, very large. All right, and then finally, it doesn't tell me we're using 3.14, but I assume that's what we would do next. And so it would be about 13,816 cubic miles. I've never seen a container so large, have you? All right, let's see. Did we get it right? Yeah, I think so. Is that what I got? Yep. They only used the exact answer. They didn't use 3.14, but that's okay. All right, so these are all the formulas you need to know for this week. So obviously right now we're working on cylinders, and then we're going to move on down to cones. So make sure you've either printed this slide, or you write them down because you're going to need them for the rest of this unit and for the unit test, okay? All right, so now let's look at some examples. So if you printed these, I think anyway, I rearranged the order of just these two slides. But anyway, I want you guys to pause the video. Don't look at the answers yet. You can just put it in your calculator if you want to, just to confirm that you're getting them right. But I want you to do two things. The first ones, you're going to do all 5 of these. Leave your answers in terms of pi. Pi should be in the answer. And then the next couple of slides, it'll actually tell you to, on these same figures, you need to use 3.14 for pi. All right, so you guys pause the video and do that on your own and come back and check your answers. All right, so on the first one, you should have squared 4, multiply 4 times 4, which is the height, and then times pi. So we got 16 times 4, which is 64, I believe. So 64 pi feet cubed. Oh, there shouldn't be a space right there. It should just be 64 pi. All right, the next one, your radius is 12, so you should have squared 12, which is 144, times 11, which is whatever that is, I don't know. But the answers are on the next screen, the next slide. And then you should have squared 4, so 4 squared is 16. 16 times 12, pi. And then 9 is your radius, so you should have squared 9. 81 times 7, pi, whatever that is. And then once again, square 12. And 12 squared is 144 times 8. And these are our answers. So hopefully you got them all right, everybody. Now, those same dimensions, like I said, we are actually going to use 3.14 for pi. So go ahead and do that. Write down your answers and then come back and check them. All right, so on that first one, we had 64 pi. So 64 times 3.14 would be about 200.96 cubic feet. The second one is 4,973.76. The number 3 is 602.88 cubic feet. Number 11, 1,780.38 cubic centimeters. And number 5 should be 6,317.28. All right, did you guys get those right? I hope you did. All right, so if we had a cylinder, which is what we were just talking about, if we had a cylinder and next to it we had a cone that had the same height and the same diameter, if these were the same, if you filled up 3 cones, you could pour 3 full cones into a cylinder. It would take up the same amount of water. You had 3 full cones it would take to fill up one cylinder that has the same height and the same diameter. So as you notice, hopefully the formula is very similar to a cylinder. The only difference is we're going to use the fraction 1/3. So 1/3 times pi times radius squared times height. That is the formula for a cone. All right, so on this one, if you're leaving it in terms of pi, the first thing you would do is you would square your radius of 2. So 2 squared is 4. 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. But then remember, you have to find a third of 12, and a third of 12 is 4. So the volume of this cone would be 4 pi, and then if you use 3.14 for pi, you would get about 12.6 cubic units. All right, so here's another video of this lady here finding the volume of a cone using that formula. 1/3 times, the capital B means the area of the base, which is pi r squared, times height. All righty. So let's look at this one. So we're going to use our formula 1/3 times pi times our radius squared times our height. Well, 1/3 of pi times 3 squared times 10. Well, I know 3 squared is 9. right? And I know 1/3 of 9 is 3, so you can simplify it this way. So this is just pi times 3 times 10. So 30 pi would be our answer and an exact answer. And then to multiply 30 times 3.14, that's going to give us 94.2. All right, so they simplify it this way. If you're having a calculator and you just want to put it all in at the same time, the way I suggest you do it is go ahead and if you're leaving it in terms of pi, just worry about doing 3 squared times 10 in your calculator and then hit divided by 3. There's 1/3, right? When you divide something by 3, you're finding 1/3 of it. And this is also going to give you the right answer. So if you don't want to mess with that fraction button, that's fine. Just after you type everything else in, the last thing you do, just divide by 3, and that will give you 30. Make sure if you leave it in terms of pi, make sure you add that symbol. But then even if you take this and go ahead and multiply that in your calculator by 3.14, you're going to get the same answer. Okay? I hope that makes sense, guys. All right, so now, I want you guys to go all the way to the end of this video because there's a couple of word problems you have to watch me do, okay? So I can explain them to you. All right, so I want you guys to use your formula, do 1/3 of pi times radius squared times height. And I want you to find the volume of this cone. Pause the video. All right, what'd you guys get? Hopefully you got 21 pi as an exact answer. And then if you multiply 21 times 3.14, you get 65.9. All right, so what if you can't simplify the fraction? Okay, so don't worry about this. As long as you have that calculator, and if you don't want to mess with the fraction button, just divide by 4. Divide by 3. So this is fine. You don't need extra worries. All right, so I want you guys to use that formula, try these 5 problems. Make sure if they give you the diameter, what do you got to do to it? You got to half it and get the radius. All right, so these first 5 you're going to leave in terms of pi, and then you'll have the same problems, and then you're going to multiply by 3.14 and get those answers. So pause the video, give these a try. All righty, so I got 36 pi. Number 2 is 1,152 pi. The third one is 48 pi. Then we have 16 pi, and we have 42.67 pi. Like I said, we're going to take those same dimensions. We're going to use 3.14 for pi. And there are, it says square feet, square kilometers. Whoopsie, my mistake. It should say cubic feet, cubic centimeters, so on and so forth. Okay. All right, now these are the problems I did not want you to skip, all right? So we are going to kind of work backwards on these two. They're going to give you the volume, and then you have to figure out the height, I think, for both of them. All right, so the first one says, if a cone-shaped water cup holds 23 cubic inches and has a radius of 1 inch, what is the height of the cup? Use 3.14 for pi. So always start with your formula. This is a cone, so we got to use the right formula. 1/3 times pi times radius squared times height. Go ahead and write it all out, and then we're going to plug in everything we can into the formula. So instead of writing volume, our volume is 23. So we're going to bring down that 1/3. It tells us to use 3.14 for pi. Then we're going to use, for our radius is 1. So 1 squared, of course, is 1. And then we don't know h. So what can we do on this line? On this line, we're going to do all of this right here. Okay, we're doing this in our calculator. So I don't like that fraction button. I'm just going to say 3.14 times 1 squared, which of course is 3.14. And then the last thing I'm going to do is hit divided by 3. Whoops. Oh, I meant to, and I typed it wrong. Dang. Now I got to start over. 3.14 divided by 3, I got 1.04666666. I'm going to write 7. 23 times h, okay? So now I want to solve for the height. So how do I get rid of times 1.047? I'm going to divide both sides by 1.047, both sides. So in my calculator, I'm typing in 23 divided by 1.047, and my answer is about 21.97. It says round to the nearest hundredths, so I'm going to round to 21.97, almost 22 inches tall. That's the height. Okie dokie. All right, so the next one is about a cylindrical rain barrel. So this time we're using the volume formula for a cylinder, which is just pi times radius squared times h. So you guys pause the video, use my example here, and I want you to see if you can figure out the height of the rain barrel down here. All righty, so this time our volume, this thing holds 30 cubic feet, so V is 30. We're using 3.14 for pi. We're going to multiply that by our radius squared, and we don't know h at this time. So we're literally going to multiply 3.14 times 4, which is 2 squared. And I got 12.56 times h. And then how do we solve for h? We divide both sides by 12.56. 12.56. And our height is what? 30 divided by 12.56 is, ooh, that's a long number, 2.39, if we round it correctly, feet. Okay. All right, did you guys get it? I hope you did. I think that's the last one, you guys. I think that's the last, is it? Oh, yeah. All right, so once again, there's your formulas, and then we're going to get to spheres on Wednesday. Okay, guys? Well, I hope everyone has a great day. If you need my help, I'll be back in the office on Tuesday. Please let me know what I could do to help you guys. And if not, I will see you for class on Wednesday. Bye, guys.